It's a great insight to know and to learn how wonderful women have been impacting, have been affecting lives positively. And this makes us to look up. And you know, when you have an award for this or an appreciation, it is a call to do more. You know, they said the reward of hard work is more work. And so this is to tell us we still have a long way to go. The Africa of my own dream, I want to see women not in competition, but at par with their fellow colleagues as male. I don't want to see women being victims of brutalization. I don't want to see women being victims of war. I don't want to see women being victims of banditry. I don't want to see women being victims of rape. And this is my own desire, my own dream as an African woman. And I look forward to read from every one of us your own dream Africa, the role of women in this Africa of ours. And on this note, I'd like to welcome all our speakers. As I'm waiting to read from some of us to use our chat bar to tell us the Africa of your dream. I'm happy and pleased to have Ms. Karima all the way from Africa Institute of Economic Development and Planning. Dr. Samira, we are waiting to learn from you. Wow. From Ms. Yemi Adenuga, yes, we can't wait to hear from you. Yes, someone is joining us, a male from Nigeria. Yes, we love to have you, all our he for she, helping other women to achieve their dream. Oyedoji, that's nice. How are we assisting our fellow women? I hope we are not women antagonizing women. I hope we are not the women being the enemies of our fellow women. Oh, this is from Joan. African and African diaspora women empowering each other. That is brilliant. I love that. Women empowering women. Having ourselves, like our topic, women, the role in Africa of our dream. How are we challenging each other? How are we assisting? Wow, from Karima, Africa, which relies on all its resources, be the woman, enough of us being a dumping ground. Women must begin to support women. Yes, from Ben, I love this. We must not be our enemies. We must be our friends. We must uphold each other. We must lend a shoulder to each other to lean on. And I can tell you, with all this, we will have a great time. And Sonia will be moving to our first presentation. And yes, we can't read all, yes, but let's keep it coming. Let's keep it coming. So without wasting our time, still having your Africa of your dream, we'll move into our first presentation. And I want us to have our writing notes, our writing pads with us while we welcome our first speaker. And the first speaker that we'll be having today will be Joan Rolle from School of Business, Medgar Evers College, University of New York. Africa of our dream, the way forward. I look forward to this. What is the Africa of your dream? What is the Africa of my dream? Over to you. Ms. Joanne, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. I'd like to share my screen. Yeah, the host disabled participant screen sharing. If I could share my screen, I have a brief talk that I just recorded this morning so I wouldn't have to talk so much and so that my time would be, yes, we got it. Okay, so let's do this and let's do this and let's do this. Okay. I am so happy to have. Can you hear me? With you.
Can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Life and a little bit about Africa and the diaspora, and I say that because as we're talking about dreams, it is my dream that women in Africa and the African diaspora would come together and mobilize for business. That is part of the dream that I have. And so I have a few slides to help organize my talk because the talk can go on and on around an agenda for the few minutes that And I will talk a little bit about my journey as an educator, how I end up here, why I'm here, and the Startup Africa conferences for women that I participated that really launch a lot of the work with the students that I do in entrepreneurship and in Africa. Um, Collaboration and growth post COVID. I'll give a few tips on where I think entrepreneurship and business should go for economic development for women. And that's my topic. I'm an economist by training, but I'm a believer in economic development through entrepreneurship. And I'll give a call to action for women. Let's start with me, the educator. It didn't start out that way. I liked economics, but I didn't think that women could be economists. I never saw a woman economist, and I never saw a Black woman economist. But when I went away to college, I was the first one in my family to go to college. That university hired their very first Black person in the School of Business. I was in the School of Business, and that person was an economist. And I said, well, if he could do it, I can do it too. And that's how I started my journey, with a love of the discipline. I earned a bachelor's and a master's in economics and a PhD in economics at Howard University. But long before my PhD, I met and married and fell in love with a Tanzanian. And he had promised my father, because I was still young when I met him and married him, that if he allowed me to go to his country, because married people should be together, that he would find a way for me to come back. And he held true to his word. You will see in this corner, later we decided to part, and that was because, and it was political and not for any other reason. He loved and wanted to stay in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. I needed to finish my education. And after being there, I just found that our political paths parted. But it wasn't because we as individuals had a problem. And so you see in the top left-hand corner is my daughter. Her name is Grace Yangoma. Her name is Grace Karius Latrice Yangoma Katabaruki. And that's me. And that's her daughter, who her name is Abigail. And so along this journey, I did many things. I worked for government. I worked for IBM. And then in my IBM assignment, I was IBM visiting professor to Hampton University. That changed my life. It introduced me to the academy, but it introduced me to students who I could see lives were being changed from the day they came to the end point. And so what you see here is pictures of my students. Many of our students, and my area of focus and interest is entrepreneurship, economics, but entrepreneurship specifically. And we received funding, and part of that funding was used to go around the world studying entrepreneurship in different countries. We studied it in Thailand, in Japan, in Costa Rica, in Kenya. We went to Kenya at least 3 times. And my students also competed nationally and internationally. This specific student was the first and the only woman student to win a smart pitch competition in the City University of New York. No other woman had and has done since. This gentleman won a smart pitch, the last smart pitch competition, not smart pitch competition, the last Startup New York competition. And here we are with a group of entrepreneurs and donors. And so that's become very important in my life. Down here at the bottom, you see us with a group of women. We went to conferences, women entrepreneurship conferences in Nairobi, and this is a group of the women. Coming back closer today, a couple of years ago, I took my daughter back and my granddaughter, and that is her stepmother, who is my ex-husband's wife. We are all together. I wanted my daughter to know where we come from. And I wanted my granddaughter to know where we came from, because my daughter had her own path and actually did study abroad in Kenya and was in Tanzania several times. This is when we first started studying entrepreneurship, she was a freshman. Just last year, she graduated. She was a nurse full time. She studied psychology, and now she is going to graduate school. But she's interested in the cannabis industry and doing a business in cannabis. But I have this here to let you know that my students become a part of my work that we do is together. And so here is our Startup Africa conferences for women. This is where our students went the most, spend the most amount of the time going. This was the very first time we went. It was a conference for all women. This is my student you saw just a minute ago, my freshman student. She has gone with me almost every place that I've gone. And she continues to work as a nurse right now. In fact, I talked to her recently we just did a 2-day conference, and she attended the conference. Here is Kenyatta University. They were our hosts of the Startup Africa ED. Erastus is right here. Again, you see in front of the Entrepreneurship Innovation Center where they start businesses. Here we went up country to see an all-girls school where they wanted to incorporate into their curriculum entrepreneurship. Here is in the Incubator Center. We were part of the Young African Leadership Institute that is funded, I think, by the State Department. We happened to be there at a time they were there, and they included us in some of those conversations. Here is just to let you know it wasn't all work, that our teams, while we were there, we were engaged in part of the culture. Over here on the end, you see what has happened to Nairobi is that a lot of the young people come from all around the country. Country cannot absorb them all, and so they have, as a result, one of the largest slums in the world. But people still come, and Nairobi is one of the centers and the hubs of Africa. Okay, so let me spend a little bit of time talking about ways in the post-COVID we can change our destiny as women. We can look to blue ocean opportunities in tech, finance, health, and others. You know, there's a lot of businesses out there that are suffering, but there are some who are doing well, and they are in these specific industries. So look for opportunities where there is good opportunity to grow your business. Develop continuous mentors and mentees. You can't do this alone. And once you learn how to do it, help someone else do it. Seek diverse sponsorship and partnerships outside of your network. If you're only inside of your network, you can only be helped by people that you already know, and their skills are limited and resources are limited. Long development of skills and relationship. Long-term development of skills and relationship. Keep growing, keep learning, keep producing, and do it in teams. There's only so much we can do alone. And that's why many investors don't like to invest in solo entrepreneurs. Build your teams so that you can build your strength and your empowerment to go forward. And do outreach into your communities. Help those who can't help themselves. Give back. Connect your vision of wealth and empowerment to others, and go global. We once tried to do a U.S. free trade agreement that did not pan out, but there is now a Kenya free trade agreement, and what the hope is once they get a Kenya free trade agreement, they will replicate and continue and recommit to unity and accountability. I'm going to go on because my time is limited. I got a couple of more slides. Why empower and improve opportunity for women and own business? Because they are making impact. Women are the sources and the souls of those households. Don't live down to expectations. Do something that others don't do. Then in conclusion is to access all the opportunities that are available, leverage your diversity, your creativity, your capacity building, you have power of collaboration to launch and grow businesses. The call to action is to mobilize together African and African diaspora women so that we could have bigger and better business for our children. Thank you. and our future.
Okay.
This is a wonderful session. We enjoy this. We love it. We love it. If you're going to leave the session, you must put this at the back of your mind. Don't live down to expectation. Do what others don't do. That is a charge for us as a woman in Africa. And from your journey so far as an educator to your startup to collaboration and your post-COVID-19, then the call to giving back to our environment, our society, our outreach, going global. Wow, that's fantastic, fantabulous. I've been blessed because I have an NGO also working on, and so I've learned about giving back on our outreaches in communities, giving back, at least lending a elder shoulder to others. And we will still want you to sit back because we're coming back to the interactive session after we having all the speakers all together. So at this juncture, I say a big thank you to Mace, Joanne, Ron. You have done so wonderfully well. So sit back, white people, with your questions, please. You can have them. You can just send your love icons to Joanne Raw for a wonderful presentation, or your clap in the chat room. While doing that, we'll move to the next presenter, which is Dr. Samira M. Altwadri from Global Lead, Population and Development Health, Nutrition and Population Global Practice, the World Bank. Wow, it's a privilege to have you on board. And you will be talking on the influence and impact of African women in environmental development. I can't wait to listen to this. Yes, I'm reading from Ben. Joan highlighted that entrepreneurship. Can you see? You are a blessing to us. We love you, Joan. You've done well. So let's keep it. Yes, that's the tongue pop. I love the spirit. Yeah. So we invite the next speaker. Dr. Samira, are you there?
I am right here.
Wow. I love to have you on board. And I have my pen and paper to jot down as usual. You'll be blessing us with the influence or impact of African women in environmental development. The floor is over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I am honored and humbled by this invitation. I am obviously not an African woman, but I am very close to African women. I'm a brown woman from the South. So all of your issues actually resonate with me and with my fellow women. Now, I have a couple of confessions to make before I dive into what I am going to say. The first one is that the linkages between gender and climate change and the environment are very well researched. There is an abundance in the literature on, the positive impact and the negative consequences and what have you. So, and given the very short time I had to prepare for this presentation, and also the very short time I have to deliver it, I was really at a loss of, what is it that I am going to be delivering to this very distinguished platform and audience. So the second confession is that I really packed it into three main areas, which are going to be just scratching the surface on all of this. But I also look to the interactive discussions. I am going to talk about framing the issue, and what is it we're talking about in here. And the second thing is I am going to put together some solutions or some policy directives, and I am going to end with the same as my fellow previous speaker, with a call to action. So I don't have a presentation, so you're stuck with my face until I go through this next 6 or 7 minutes that are allocated to me. So bear with me, please. Now, if we want to frame the issue, as I said, the climate change, which is really the top of the environmental aspects of our day and time, has a negative impact on everyone, but girls and women are disproportionately affected compared to men and boys. Around 21.5 million people are displaced each year because of climate-related issues, and children and women are 14 times more likely than men to die or be injured during or due to a natural disaster. The World Bank, my own backyard, estimates that more than 143 million people could be displaced by 2050 due to the impacts of climate change. And most of them are going to be women and children. Now, just a word on indigenous people, and I know that the continent of Africa carries a lot of those who make up around 5% of the world's poorest and maintain 80% of the planet's biodiversity on their lands, have been among the first to face those direct and dire consequences of climate change, given their links to the lands on which they live and the resources upon which they actually depend on to thrive and live. Climate disasters have also shown to increase gender-based violence, including sexual harassment, violence, exploitation, domestic violence, child marriage, and human trafficking as well, like any other disaster, but because the climate ones are very difficult to predict and they are quite also difficult to mitigate. Women comprise 43% of the agricultural labor force in developing countries. Africa is included, of course, and 50 to 60% in parts of Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. Women are impacted by any strains on agricultural production during periods of drought, for example, and erratic rainfalls. Women as primary procurers work harder to secure food, water, and cooking fuel for their families. This put an added pressure on girls who often have to actually drop out of school to help their mothers manage the increased burden. So there's a direct impact on the human capital formulation and accumulation for those girls. Unfortunately, despite all of this growing evidence of the specific vulnerabilities girls and women face due to climate change, their unique and significant experience, skills, and contribution to that part of the development and environmental sustainability still goes under-recognized and underappreciated. There had been a lot of conventions by the United Nations, which I really don't have the time to go into, but the first one was really sort of a gender neutral, or you can say gender blind, until all of this came into light into the COP 22, and then now we're seeing more and more, especially with the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, what can we do? There is, as I said at the beginning, an abundance of evidence-based solutions that actually carry a high potential to ensure that women and girls are able to claim their roles in all efforts to conserve the environment and tackle climate change, among which, and this is not an exhaustive list, this is me cherry picking actually from what can be relevant to this conversation. We need to invest and integrate climate change resiliency, adaptation, and mitigation with women's health programming in general, especially those that are related to sexual and reproductive health and rights. I am a physician by classical training, and this is something that I sort of, gravitate towards, but I think there is a lost opportunity if we do not actually integrate all of the other aspects of development into this health programming, because it's a low-hanging fruit. We need to include all women in climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts, and specifically in decision-making. We need to ensure investment and implementation of gender transformative approach to disaster preparedness, response, and recovery activities. We cannot just, this one size fits all. There are actually specific gender dimensions that have to do with all of these mitigation efforts. We also need to have a very serious look at improving and enforcing land rights, inheritance, tenure, ownership for girls and women. And I think my fellow panelists would agree that there are huge dimensions and issues with the land tenure for women, in not just in Africa, but in the South in general. We also need to promote and fund women-led and women-focused sustainable solutions to climate change, including indigenous and grassroots nature-based solutions, resource management, and food production and activities. And finally, we need to promote a gender-responsive approach to climate financing, be it from the government, from financiers outside the government, whether they are bilateral or multilateral, from the UN and from other areas. We need to actually include all of that. And I am going to finish by the call to action. And it's packaged within really very few areas that I have already mentioned. and talks about in the challenge and in the solution. If the world is serious about curbing climate change and conserving the environment, then we have to see enhanced investment in gender equality, women's health and rights, equal participation in society, and equal decision-making. The framework that was offered to us in 2014, 2015 by the SDGs clearly sets forth an opportunity for all stakeholders to work together to power progress for all, people and also the planet alike. Uniting the gender equality and conservation communities around the climate crisis promises to be a galvanizing moment in advancing the SDGs and the health and rights of girls and women. As powerful agents of change, girls and women should be recognized as the leaders they are in global efforts to mitigate climate change efforts. And in order to make shared progress, different stakeholders, governments, civil society, academia, media, affected populations, the United Nations, and the private sector must all come together under one chapeau and under one umbrella, which is actually trying to mitigate the issues of the climate change, preserving the environment, and including girls and women as, really very important and very central actors into all of this. We need to invest in girls and women's sexual and reproductive health education. We need to strengthen the participation of girls and women, including Indigenous women, into their decision-making, as I said. We need to be cognizant of our development policy that have dimensions of climate change and recognize the gender-sensitive impacts and provide women with access to resources and also give them opportunities to participate in mitigation and adaptation process. We need to promote gender-responsive approach to climate financing, as I said. We need to invest in new technologies and integrate environmental conservation strategies within other strategies that are considered run-of-the-mill or they had long been established, like family planning, women's health programming, and vice versa. We need to make it a priority to establish accessibility of clean energy and the distribution of fuel-efficient cookstoves for refugee and displaced girls and women, so they can actually use their energy and their time into doing something else besides being, running around for all of these energy sources. And finally, we need to include women and girls in all aspects of the creation of policies and strategies around environmental protection, including disaster response, building resilience, securing land and inheritance rights, food and resources, and ending energy poverty. I will stop here. I just want to say that if all of these mitigation measures, or at least the most important 3 or 4 of them, would actually see the light in terms of the development aspects of the African continent, then the African continent would not only be able to mitigate the impact of the climate change and the pollution that's coming from outside it, but also promise to be the food basket for the rest of the world. Thank you for the opportunity. You're muted.
Yes, you've given us a great insight into climate change and gender. This is wonderful because this is one problem ravaging the whole world, irrespective of being Africa, Asia, American, just name it. We are all battling with climate change one way or the other. And I can tell you the main thing I can pick here is the inclusion, because women have been segregated for long, and we happen to be the victim of most of this catastrophic and all this climate change adversity. And from your mitigation and adaptation technique, women must be included. We must all have a say, and we must all contribute as an environmentalist, as a change agent, and in a way we all have a better and a brighter world to live in. That is wonderful. From Dr. Samira, talking on the impact of African women in environmental development. Climate change is one big thing, we cannot have enough of it. We will keep on talking about the adaptation, mitigation from now to only God knows, because things are changing. So many trees are going into extinction. So many animals are going into extinction that they are.
Is it me or is she frozen?
Have we lost our speaker or is it me?
Yeah, I thought so. I saw it was frozen. I thought it was me. Tayo, do you want to take over?